Paul, you included data sovereignty in European service delivery as one of the criteria in the report this year. Can you share a little bit more about why this was so? What are the considerations that organizations with operations in the UK and in Europe need to take into account when choosing a managed security services provider?
Okay, so data sovereignty in European service delivery is quite an interesting set of criteria. So it's in there because it's mostly driven by customer demand. So one of the things we see quite clearly, not just here in Europe, but we're also starting to see similar patterns emerging in parts of the Middle East and also in parts of Asia Pacific as well, is that there's a growing concern around the topic of data sovereignty and being certain about the location of data, the legal jurisdiction that that data is under, and also being sure that that data is in compliance with the law in countries where the organization is based. Now, where that is being delivered by a service partner, they also need to make sure that the same things apply. What's also happened in the market, aside from that, in a broader geopolitical context, is you are seeing a broader kind of balkanization of the internet, where you see Europe in particular moving ahead to try and build more sovereign services and becoming more sensitive to certain types of workloads, particularly in cloud workloads and hyperscaler environments, being deployed in ways that could potentially allow access outside of the jurisdiction of the European Union. Now, with the UK and the EU specifically, when Brexit occurred, there was obviously an equivalence decision or an adequacy decision which was made between the UK and the EU, but at the moment that can be revoked at any time by the EU should the UK diverge significantly from the EU's GDPR. In practice, what we found is that many European organizations that are headquartered in the EU have a strong preference for both service delivery and for data residency to be within the EU, because you have that certainty of the application of EU law in ways that are consistent and doesn't open a compliance risk or a threat to data for an organization. Now, in many cases, this is to satisfy legislative aspects or cultural preferences or demands, but the reality is that anybody wanting to deliver into a European context needs to have an answer for those questions, even if they may disagree with maybe some of the drivers behind some of the legislation and the client sentiment. So it becomes a mandatory requirement, and without it, it becomes very difficult to convince clients otherwise that they should be entrusted with the data.
Mm-hmm. So having the ability to support organizations to remain compliant in Europe, but of course worldwide, is key. And our cyber defense, having locations close to our customers, we're well placed to do that. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Tatiana.